Haribo, Haribo, Haribo.
So we should chant a little more, or do you chant? I think it would be nice to chant. Just we'll put the harmony. Can you adjust this and tell me again what time? It's only 11:30, so we can go all the way up to 1 o'clock. Including 1 o'clock is Prashada? 1 o'clock is Prashada, okay.
Do all the students know each other here? You all get together regularly?
Yes, we will.
Okay, good. Normally at the campus, and then it's just at this home today, or it's always here, or what do you do?
We have a club on campus, Purdue, so we meet every Sunday.
Okay, every
Yeah.
Sunday? On
Yes,
Sundays.
and then once a month we meet here.
And who cooks on Sunday, every Sunday?
It's Matthew,
Really? You cook every time? You're the secret glue that keeps this club together. Yeah, it's very good. So all you, because on somebody live in, you're all in apartments or dorms or mixture or what?
I think it's mixed.
Mixed. So those that live in apartments, they can feed themselves. Those who live in dorms, sometimes they don't feed you on Sunday. So right, this is the one day, that's why it's on Sunday. I was trying to figure out why they meet on Sunday. Now I understand. Because there's Prashad. Makes a lot of sense. Most clubs they meet like Thursday night or something. It's like Sunday. Because you get to eat. Okay, great. Okay, we'll try to use this high table.
I don't know if that will be better.
Was that just a chair?
No, that's like.
Oh, that'll be much better.
Yeah.
That'll be much better if you don't mind. I feel like I'm drowning back here. Maybe while they're doing that, can we just go around real quickly, just like your first name? And especially those of you that are students, I'm curious what you're studying. Let's start here. Start here.
My name is Siddharth. I go to Purdue, Indianapolis, and I'm studying motorsports engineering.
Sports engineering.
Motorsports.
Motorsports engineering. Is that like only because this is the home of the Indianapolis 500?
That is just right.
Wow, I've never met motorsports engineering.
Yeah, me too. That's that.
Okay, very interesting. Okay.
My name is Anirudh. I go to Purdue West Lafayette. I study artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence. So you were very intelligent to plan ahead to study artificial intelligence. Okay.
No, I'm not doing that.
My name is Balaram. I'm in the West Lafayette campus and I'm a physics student.
Okay, very good. So you have a few different campuses here, huh?
What, it's just
3
two?
so far.
I said West Lafayette. Those are West Lafayette.
Okay, okay. And you look like a freshman in university yourself.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You recognize me. My name is Dharmendra Saraswat, and I'm their faculty advisor.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for that. So what do you teach?
I teach in a department named Agricultural and Biological Engineering. I teach about data science.
Very good. Thank you for being the faculty advisor.
No problem, sir.
How long have you been doing that?
They reached out to me recently, so this
So
is
it's
my
new,
first
it's a
year.
new, it's your first year?
It's a new
Okay.
student club.
Very good, very good. And you get free food on Sunday too?
That's the beauty.
Yes.
I rarely come for their club meetings, but I know this family, so when they said that you will be here,
Very nice.
So
Very
I
nice.
wanted to be here.
Very good, thank you for being here.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
And Prabhu?
Yeah, so I'm Vatsal and I'm a PhD student over here in Purdue,
In what field?
computer science.
Computer science, okay. And this,
Hare Krishna, my name is Kirti and I'm an aspiring devotee of Krishna.
you're with all of us, huh? Yes, tell us something unique about yourself though. What's your connection with this group in this home?
Oh, because I was serving with at ISKCON and there I met people.
Okay, so you heard about the event, so you came, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And you are the owner of the house? Very nice, and the chef. Thank you very much. So we go back here?
I'm Swagarika. I'm a PhD student in computer science department,
Okay.
West Lafayette.
Okay, very good.
My name is Alalanath Das. I'm a sophomore at Purdue West Lafayette, and I'm doing data analytics.
Okay, good. You're the president of the club or something?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
So
Where I live, there's a lot of split feelings about the term president. I live in Washington. Yes, it's a term that evokes emotions, different emotions in different people. thank you for taking that role and your courage for having that title. Yes.
I am Rinki, so I work as a postdoc in medicinal chemistry at Purdue.
Okay, very good.
I'm Arjun, West Lafayette campus. I study professional flight and aviation management.
Professional flight, and there's some very interesting majors out here. Professional flight and aviation management. Wow, okay.
I'm Purva, I'm doing undergrad in computer engineering.
Okay, very good.
I'm Bhavya. I'm studying accounting and finance. I'm a sophomore. I'm also at the West Lafayette
Okay, very good. You're going to keep everybody here accountable. Good.
I'm Tosivafika Devidasi. I'm a junior and I'm pre-med.
Okay, Devi Dasi.
Oh.
So you have taken formal vows of initiation by your Devi Dasi name?
Yes.
Very good.
Who is
From
your
who?
Guru Mata?
Around
Very good.
Radha.
How long ago?
this May.
This
May.
May. Great.
17.
Welcome to the two of you. Welcome to the family. Very nice. And we already heard Pandit Shiva's introduced himself. Yeah.
So I'm Viraj. I'm studying robotics engineering at the West Lafayette campus.
Very good.
I'm Chenghua. I'm an exchange student and I'm studying computer engineering.
Very good.
I am Kavin. I am a freshman at the West Lafayette campus and I am studying entomology.
Entomology. Very good. We've met before and you were introduced. And Peru, our host, I believe.
Yeah, host. I'm Grant.
Also on your way to a nice Bollywood wedding. Very good. Well, thank you for having us. Very kind of you. So we've got a whole range. We have the faculty representative, and we have undergraduate. Somebody was first year, right? First year. We have second years. We have some postgrads. We have PhD candidates. We've got the whole realm here. Very nice. Very nice. Thank you all for being here. So we'll just chat a little bit more. And I'm going to share a few words from Bhagavad Gita, and we can open up for some little conversation. How many of you have been meeting this club? You've been at least 2 times or more. Okay, who's first time? I guess that's what I should ask. Okay, so we're going to sing a couple introductory mantras, and then some of you know, and then we'll sing. Hare Krishna mantra is our favorite mantra. Maybe we'll talk about that a little later. So. Ram Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Saraswati
Krishna
So many thanks to our host, and I saw him dance in the back. I thought, this isn't good, he's dancing all by himself. Got everybody else going, thank you. So, I thought I'd read a little bit from Bhagavad Gita. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Which, of course, is a text known to all of you, to one extent or the other. And maybe share some thoughts and leave time for questions. It's important that we... Srila Prabhupada, who's our founder, who brought the incorporated ISKCON in 1966. He came to America in 1965. He was the age of 70. He got free transport on a cargo ship because he had been asked by his spiritual master, his teacher, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, you please spread the teachings of Lord Krishna and Vaishnavism to the English-speaking world, Western world. So he spent his entire life kind of preparing for that trip. And at the age of 70, he had the opportunity to come to America. He made a lot of arrangements. There's some... Okay, quit. Okay. Somebody's phone's ringing somewhere. So he came to America. First landed in Boston. He went from Boston to New York City. From there, just quickly went to Butler, Pennsylvania. He had a sponsorship for 30 days only in Butler, Pennsylvania. And then from there, he went to New York City and more or less struggled for almost a year on his own to establish some start of his society. And in July of 1966, he incorporated the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And from there from New York, he was there for a few months or so. And then from there, he went to San Francisco, opened a second temple. This was all right at the time. A lot of young people, like most of you, were very much doubting the general values and the direction of society at large. Were questioning whether they were, like they say, short selling them, maybe is the term. They were selling them a stock of goods. It's like there's an old joke about the immigrant that comes to New York and is convinced that he should give all his money to buy the Brooklyn Bridge, right? So Prabhupada came as an immigrant to talk to the Americans that they were all buying the Brooklyn Bridge, and that they should be a little more skeptical about what choices they were making in life. So we went to San Francisco, and there was a big youth movement at that time. They organized something called the Mantra Rock Dance with some bands that most of you wouldn't recognize, but they were very big in those days. And from there, he went to Montreal, and then he sent some of his disciples to London, who also struggled for an extended period of time, but they were able to meet the Beatles, most notably George Harrison, who had an interest in India and spirituality, and he became a great friend of Prabhupada and the Krishna movement, and put some records together very much based on Krishna philosophy as taught in Gita elsewhere. And then from there went to Russia and Africa, and of course back to India many, many times, and to Australia and to South America, and established this movement all around the world in less than 11 years. So today there's about 800 centers of Krishna consciousness, or ISKCON centers around the world. And we just heard about what we have here in Indianapolis, and very glad that all of you are involved. Is this officially a Bhakti Yoga Club, or the Yoga Club, or Indian Students Club, or Sunday Free Vegetarian Feast Club, or what is this club?
It's called Youth for Krishna.
Youth for Krishna. Okay, great, nice. I'm trying to be an old person for Krishna, so I admire your name. That's nice. Okay, so reading from Bhagavad Gita is most appropriate for this group then. Very good, Krishna's words. So let's jump right to that. So, Prabhupada was trying to spread knowledge of Krishna, and of course, one of his most important contributions was his translation and commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, on the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is described as the graduate study of the Gita, and then he also translated with commentary the 17 volumes, there's different versions now, of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the life and teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who Gaudiya Vaishnavas accept as Krishna coming back in this age of Kali. He was here 5,000 years ago, approximately, back approximately 500 years ago, so he wrote the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and not wrote it, but translated in commentary, and then many, many, many other books as well. So Bhagavad Gita is the most famous. So I was going to read a little bit from the 9th chapter, a text that's well known, and then some of Prabhupada's commentary, and then a little bit from text 28. Read 27, excuse me, 28, part of his commentary there, and then we'll share a few thoughts. So you get together every week, is that the idea?
Yes.
That's great. And this many, or less or more?
It fluctuates, but I would say like an average of 5 or 6 people.
Okay, great. So this is a lot. But you cook every week, Manaji?
We just started 2 weeks ago.
Oh, really? That's why, see, in 1 week, they've tripled the number of people coming because they've heard of your cooking. That's very nice. Thank you for that. So the Sanskrit to this verse, Yat karosi rasnasi, yat jahosi didasiyat, yat tapasyasi kunteya tat kurushva manarpanam. English translation, whatever you do, Krishna's speaking to Arjuna here. This is a chapter entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge, right? Like you're all students, you're trying to gain a lot of knowledge. Krishna says this is the most confidential knowledge. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. Excuse me. So Prabhupada comments, thus it is the duty of everyone to mold his life in such a way that he will not forget Krishna in any circumstance. So good name for your club. Very much aligned with his instruction. It is the duty of everyone to mold his life in such a way that he will not forget Krishna in any circumstance. Everyone has to work for maintenance of his body and soul together, and Krishna recommends herein that one should work for him. Everyone has to eat something to live, therefore he should accept the remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna. Any civilized man has to perform some religious ritualistic ceremonies. Therefore Krishna recommends do it for me. And this is called archana. Everyone has a tendency to give something in charity. Krishna says, give it to me. And this means that all surplus money accumulated should be utilized in furthering the Krishna consciousness movement. Nowadays, people are very much inclined to the meditational process, which is not practical in this age. But if anyone practices meditating on Krishna 24 hours a day by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra round his beads, he is surely the greatest meditator and the greatest yogi, as substantiated by the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And then text 28. Shubha Shubha Parar Evam Moksha She Karma Bandhanai Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma Vimukto Mam Upashasi. In this way, you will be freed from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. With your mind fixed on me and this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and will come to me. And read one paragraph of the purport, 1 or 2. Rupa Goswami says that as long as we are in this material world, this is another great saint in our lineage, contemporary follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rupa Goswami says that as long as we are in this material world, we have to act. We cannot cease acting. Therefore, if actions are performed and the fruits are given to Krishna, that is called Yukta Vairagya. Actually situated in renunciation, such activities clear the mirror of the mind. And as the actor gradually makes progress in spiritual realization, he becomes completely surrendered to the personality of Godhead. Therefore, at the end, he becomes liberated, and this liberation is also specified. By this liberation, he does not become one with the Brahman Jyoti, but rather enters into the planet of the Supreme Lord. It is clearly mentioned in this verse, Mam Upashyasi. He comes to me, quote unquote, back home, back to Godhead. Anyone who has no interest but to dedicate his life to the service of the Lord is actually a sannyasi. Such a person always thinks of himself as an eternal servant dependent on the supreme will of the Lord. As such, whatever he does for the benefit of the Lord. Whatever action he performs in his service to the Lord. He does not give serious attention to the fruitive activities or prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas. For ordinary persons, it is obligatory to execute the prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas. But although a pure devotee who is completely engaged in the service of the Lord may sometimes appear to go against the prescribed Vedic duties, actually it is not so. So I will end there. Shri Prabhupada Jai Namam Vishnu Paraya Krishna Vishnu Pradeshi Bhakti Vinata Samhita Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi So to just share a couple thoughts on this, I was thinking that as students, we speak to the students. In one sense, we're all students throughout our whole life. We should be students. I think one thing I was surprised as I grew in my adult life, how if you stop learning, you're finished. You know, it's not like you finish whatever undergraduate years or graduate studies, your PhD studies, and then okay, it's it, you stop learning. You have to continue learning, lifelong learning. So in that sense, we're all students, but most of you here are students in the university system at some level. So as students, we're really kind of preparing ourselves for our future life. We're asking, and you've all asked, and maybe you continue to ask, what's a good field to study, right? Like I've seen sometimes the trends, like in the States, sometimes I can remember a few years ago, there was a huge opening in nursing. So many people went into nursing, but by the time they graduated, there weren't any jobs left because the trends change, right? We all see that. So you're trying to figure out, okay, what's a good field to go into? Previous to that, of course, what's a good university to go to? You all jump through lots of hoops. I have two granddaughters that are in university as undergraduates now, and I think, I don't know, probably some of you did more. I think they applied to something like 15 universities, and I talked to somebody recently that applied to like something like 40 universities. They're trying to get into medical schools, a little more, even more complicated. But right, you got to put a lot of work into that. What university should I go to? Where do I want to go? So you're preparing for that. What's a good field to study? Where should I live? Who should I marry? All these different kind of questions are there. What duties do I have to fulfill? Just like you know, especially everybody here but me is from an Indian background, so the sense of duty to one's parents and grandparents and family, it's stronger than it is for most people born and raised in the West. There's still family values, of course. There's a lot of arguments about that, what that means these days, but it's not, my observation is not as strong as it is for people coming from an Indian culture. So there's a lot of things we're preparing for and a lot of choices to make, a lot of different things to understand. I think a couple of you said you're studying computer science. And I know like a few years ago, everybody I knew was getting into computer science. And then I think right now it's like, where's it gonna go, right? You said you're computer, but AI focused, right? So that's like in the last, year and a half, people start taking that seriously. Because all of a sudden it's like, whoops, the world's changed. What was a really solid field is all of a sudden not such a solid field, and we better change and modify what we're gonna do there. So when we're making those questions, as students, as young students or old students, as I mentioned, we all have to be students, we naturally take advice, isn't it? You asked, well maybe you didn't ask, but all your uncles had advice, right? And you said, thank you, uncle, very respectfully, and then probably did the opposite of what they said. But you listened to their advice. So we take advice, we study, do research, right? You talk to other people in that field. You know, you are here in Indianapolis, so you ask people, what's it like? What's the weather like? Is it hot one day and 3 days later it rains? And they said yes, and you said, yeah, that's exactly the kind of place I'm looking for. So you chose to come here. And we do different reasons. We ask our elders, we ask experts, we ask our friends, and we all know, you've all experienced, sometimes they give contradictory advice, isn't it? You know, one person says you should do this, another person says that. One person says go to this university, someone else says no, that's not a good university, go to this university. Someone says you definitely should study this field, someone else says, oh no, that's a dead end, you don't want to do that, there's so many people, right? You have to weed your way through it. Of course, these days you can just ask AI and unconsciously accept everything they say. But then again, you read a study that, you better be careful because sometimes AI gets it wrong. Right? We all know that. So we're taking different advice, and sometimes we get contradictions. And we see that oftentimes the advice is not so good. I couldn't have said this a year ago. It would have been a foolish statement to make a year ago. People would have thought, are you crazy? But today you can ask, is it wise to come to America? Many of you were born here, some of you probably not. Is America the best place to go as a foreign student for your education. Now, a year ago would have been, what are you, crazy? You get into American University? Obviously, you need to do that, and your parents and maybe your grandparents, your aunts and uncles, they all gave a lot of money to help make sure you come. And they're all checking your grades every 24 hours to make sure you're making use of their investment. But today you ask, is this the right place to be? It's like, we hope so, right? We hope, I mean, we hope they're not going to throw every foreign student out of the country, right? We hope, but they're kind of trending that way. Politics aside, that's the reality of the world. We hope they're not going to shut down all the research grants for every university in the country. We hope. It would be insane if that happened, right? But we seem to be going down that path. So again, politics aside, the point is the advice that we get may be good, may be bad. And the world that's painted to us may be something we can depend upon, and maybe it's not so dependable. Maybe it changes. So here, Krishna's given his advice, right? Your uncle gave advice, your aunt gave advice, your mom gave advice, your dad gave advice, the university counselor gave advice, your high school counselor gave advice, your favorite high school teacher gave advice, your favorite undergraduate teacher gave advice, your next door neighbor gave advice, everybody gave advice, Google gave advice, AI gave advice, and you have to filter all the way through it. Some of you probably, I don't know, maybe not, some of you may have changed majors, whether you realized for whatever reasons you didn't like what you're studying, or just it seemed that it's not such a great field these days. Some people, I know when I was young, I changed universities. At a certain point, it was like, okay, I checked that one out, let's try that one out. So we try different things. So here in the Gita, bring it back to what we read, Krishna's giving his advice, and like everybody else, we should kind of weigh it carefully and consider if there's any value. Prabhupada writes in his introduction to Gita, he says that Krishna's going to make a lot of claims here. He's going to make a lot of points. At least theoretically, we should accept them and test it and see if it makes sense. Which is quite interesting for an acharya of any religious tradition to say, okay, at least think about it. Theoretically, give it some credit and see. He's not saying, okay, accept everything carte blanche. That would be not very intelligent. Prabhupada one time was asked, I refer to him because he's my spiritual teacher and the founder of our organization, so I refer to him a lot. But one time he said, this whole movement is meant for creating independently thoughtful people. Not everywhere in the world is made to create independently thoughtful people. There's a lot of places and cultures and countries and societies and governments who aren't creating independently thoughtful people. But at least in theory, this is what we're trying to do. What Prabhupada was trying to do is create independently thoughtful people. So independently thoughtful means, okay, advice from here, advice from here, advice from there. Okay, Krishna says, okay, we'll see what's he got to say. Okay, I'll see what he says. So he's saying here, in this verse we read, that we should, whether we're a PhD student, or undergraduate student, or married with 6 kids, and we have a house in the suburbs, and we're just starting out, we live in a little apartment, we're studying this, we're studying that. He advises we should try to spiritualize our lives. Whatever, like he says, whatever you do, whatever you offer, give away, whatever austerities you perform, spiritualize. He says directly, because it's offering bhakti offered to him. But the idea, connect all that we do, he's recommending with the process of bhakti, and ultimately with him. So then naturally we should inquire, well, why? Why should I want to do that? Again, we're meant to be independently thoughtful people. And he makes the explanation exceedingly clear throughout the Bhagavad Gita, because otherwise whatever we're investing in, it's not permanent, right? And it's only going to last for a certain period of time. Now, this is contrary to a lot of things we're taught in this society. I mean, you're intelligent people. Many of you coming from different culture. You've been exposed to different cultures, so you can see things a little more objectively than sometimes people can that are kind of brought up in a certain system. But I was in Chicago recently, and I was in another city, saw the same billboard. I was like, oh, this is like a trend. Coming out of the airport, there was a big billboard, kind of handsome guy, just had just the perfect length of beard for all handsome men to have these days. But he was thinning a little bit on the top, and the sign said, eternal hair. Eternal hair. You just buy this product. Nothing personal, but you and I, maybe we should talk about that product later on. We both could benefit from that. But eternal hair, that's ridiculous. There's no such thing as eternal hair, but like these guys thinking, great, I give them $1,000 or whatever it is by their price. I'm gonna get eternal hair. Like, well, no, it's not gonna work that way. And billboards, and you might have noticed, I look at billboards as we're driving because it's such a test of what's going on in society. I was someplace else recently, and there was a big sign. Again, the problem with it, you go by so fast you can't stop and take a picture. And this one I thought was really insidious because it said, was in some state where gambling is very legal, and it said, your wife doesn't mind that you come home late because you're gambling. She minds that you lose, which is a real play on the male psyche. Because men have this thing, you want to be strong and be the protector and the provider and make your wife happy. And, she doesn't mind that you're out till 1 o'clock at night gambling, which is the fact. She wants you to be at home doing something dependable. And you're out without her, on your own, doing who knows what, risking the whole family fortune. But they have this sign to make, no, if you're a real man, you can stay longer and you're going to win, which means you got to gamble more, which means you're going to lose more to make her happy. That's very insidious. So those kind of thought processes, the way that people's minds are manipulated is kind of a very unfortunate thing. So people are being told, invest in things that aren't permanent. So Krishna's saying here, hey, and we'll get around to in a minute, at least some of our time to invest in something that actually is permanent. Just like this is a beautiful home here, but sometimes you hear about developers. I remember in the 50s, I think there was a big problem. People, there was no social media, there's no computers, and there was a big kind of a land rush. Everybody wanted to buy land in Florida. But there was all kinds of scams because they were selling people property in the middle of a swamp. But they didn't know until they showed up and they wired their money, whatever they do in those days. Because it wasn't suitable to build a house, but they told people it was. Or sometimes people there's some mistake. They build a house and they find out that it's not solid foundation. And we all know what happens if you build a house on an impermanent, moving foundation. How's your house? Not so good. Not so good. It won't last. So we want to build on a solid foundation. So the same way in our lives, Krishna's advising we should make sure we build our lives on a solid foundation, which means that he recommends throughout the Gita, because it's interesting. You say, okay, well, gosh, it sounds like, okay, do everything for him. Okay, well, that means, are you saying I have to give everything up? Is that what spiritualizing my life is all about? And Prabhupada, I read one little bit, Prabhupada mentioned that actually connecting with Krishna, this is real renunciation. Because we do, we're, the tradition, the Vedic tradition, which Prabhupada refers to, you're all aware of, there's different types of yoga practices and teachings, and with so many famous sannyasis, renunciates in the past, so, where does that fit in? So with the Bhakti tradition, the Krishna tradition, and when Krishna teaches, he tells Arjuna to renounce everything, and a couple times Arjuna tells him, he says, I'm confused. You keep telling me to renounce everything, and then tell me to go fight. And then you tell me act with intelligence, and then you tell me to go fight. And then you tell me I'm not a Kshatriya, and then you tell me to go fight. Like, he keeps asking him, I'm completely bewildered by it, and then Krishna goes deeper and deeper and deeper. So in the same way, we may think, well, okay, wait a minute, so do everything for Krishna, but, hey, I got to pay bills. And maybe many of us, I need to get a job at some point and send some money back to my family, or I've got other obligations. I go to work, or et cetera. So just as Krishna told Arjuna, he said, you have a particular nature, which was a warrior in that particular situation, and you're faced with a certain situation, and the complexities of that's a whole different topic. But as far as it applies to us, you have a particular nature, so you should spiritualize what you do. He's explaining to him the same thing. You should spiritualize what you do. So how can we do that? That's the question. And the example is given. If we don't do it, in the Bhagavatam, I mentioned graduate study of Bhagavad Gita in the first canto, he gives a very simple analogy. He says, if we don't do that, it's like if you have a bird in a very, very, very fancy cage, and you polish the cage. Maybe it's a gold cage. You polish the cage every day, but you don't feed the bird. one might misunderstand what are the priorities. So like, wow, look at this beautiful cage I've got. You're polishing and showing all your friends the cage, but you don't feed the bird. So eventually, no, the bird dies. You have a nice cage. What good is a cage if you don't have a bird? The cage's only purpose is to assist in the bird. And it's great to have a gold cage, fantastic, but don't forget to feed the bird. So in this world, and in this time, we can see, I mean, you're all living in Indianapolis. We're a long ways from a lot of problems. We're not worried about if our apartment will be blown up by a Russian bomb or Ukrainian drone, right? Anybody have nightmares about that? No Ukrainians or Russians here, right? If we live there, that'd be a big fear. A big fear. Nobody here from the Gaza Strip, where you don't know how many more buildings. I mean, now there's, we hope, peace, right? Hopefully it's holding up. I don't know. I didn't read the news this morning. Whatever it is, 2,500 people captured and so many killed, and 67,000 people in response to that killed. And I mean, those things are a long way away from us, but still it's on the same planet. And we know, I mean, I do a little work in the environmental field, and I live in Washington, as I mentioned. It's not a very popular position these days, but the world's heating up, and the water levels are going up, and the ice packs are melting, and it's a very serious problem. Whether we want to ignore it or whether we want to take it seriously, it's a problem that affects the world. And therefore, again, a thoughtful person like eternal hair, I don't think I'm going to get eternal hair. And gamble more, this will make my wife happy. I don't really think so. And so many different examples of that. And we know the wars may be long ways away, the conflicts in Africa, the conflicts in Ukraine, the conflicts in other parts of the world. But even here in this country, where things are relatively peaceful, these days we know so much economic uncertainty. Things seem to be kind of going okay, but when I travel a lot in the Midwest, it's like, okay. I was just speaking with someone the other day who, business owner, said we can't get in, there's nobody to do the work. There's nobody working. So at one point in time, that's going to kind of become a problem. Just a current problem, there's other problems. But more subtle than that, and you all read the studies, at least among American students, and probably you all have, because of your ethnic background, whether you're born here or wherever, have stronger bonds to avoid this. But the previous, under Biden's administration, the previous Surgeon General published a study saying loneliness, remember the term that he used? He said loneliness in America is an epidemic. The Surgeon General, that's the person that watches all the disease and lets everybody know how we doing health-wise. He said loneliness is an epidemic. And I read somewhere that at least at some point in time, maybe it's still there, they had like a cabinet level, a very important level in the UK to study loneliness. And when they do a little bit of research, they realize that one major factor of people are lonely is because of these. Now, I have a 16-year-old grandson, and I don't remember what point in time his parents bought him one of these, but I've been reading some things lately about high schools that tell all the students, you can't have your phone on during school. I read one thing recently. They interviewed one principal. He said, I used to walk into the lunchroom, nobody was talking. Right? We all know you're young people. I mean, old people also like to talk to our friends, but young people especially, like peers and friends, and like your parents, like, yeah, your friends, it's important, right? They weren't talking to each other. And he said, since we have this rule that you can't have your phone in the lunchroom and during class, you walk in the lunchroom, they're all talking. They're all socializing. And when we don't do that, it has very negative effects upon people and their mind, their sense of well-being and all that. And we all know you all have friends like they're walking on the street. We all see it. I notice it maybe more as an older person. You see like a group of young people walking on the street, and they look a little morose, and they're all like looking at their phones, and they're not talking to each other. And then they come across some like really like cool background, and they all stop, right? And they smile, and they take a selfie, and then they keep walking. And then they send those selfies to all their friends. And their friends look at the selfie, and what do their friends think? He's having fun. She's having fun. I'm not having fun. How come they're having fun? I'm having fun. And at least another phenomenon, very prominent these days, depression. It still is one of, if not the wealthiest country in the world. It's got so many opportunities. Why are people so depressed? Why are they depressed? If there's more money and bigger houses and nicer cars and all the things that we're kind of led by society in general will satisfy us, why are we not satisfied? Because the bird's dying even though the cage is golden. That's what Krishna's telling us here. So therefore he's explaining that we should do both. You know, you're all students, we're all students for life, but those of you that are at the student phase of your life, you're making these decisions, what you should study, where you're going to go, how you're going to invest your time and your energy. Krishna's just advising, balance your life. Balance your life. Maybe you knew, I knew some people when I was younger. I remember I had at least a couple friends. It was a nice neighborhood, almost everybody went to college, but there was a couple friends that quit, that did after high school, they immediately went out and got a job doing something. So most of us, you're like a college student, you have no money, you can't afford to do anything. And here you got this friend who today's dollars maybe is making $25 an hour. And there was like pressure, like, well, geez, you know, he just went and got a job in a mechanic shop and, or whatever it was, flipping pizzas. And he's making, you know, it was $4 an hour back then, but kind of equivalent to $20, $25. And you think like, oh, he's saying, I'm really succeeding because he went for the short-term gain. The long-term, we know, you've all made the decision, I'm going to put aside the short-term gain for the long-term gain. So Krishna's saying, okay, there's an even longer-term gain. And make sure we don't sacrifice the truly important longer-term gain for some short-term gain of focusing entirely on what our material needs might be. Things related to the body, or things related to the mind, or things related to the society around us, the body and the mind, but understand what are the needs of the soul. And just, he highlights a few things throughout the Gita. Whatever we are, he mentions, you know, whatever you do, whatever you offer, give away. Learn to offer something to Krishna. Make some effort to spiritualize what we do. And a few things, add some time for meditation. Just like we chanted for a few minutes, Hare Krishna. I do that every day, taking a vow. Many of us here taking vows to do some of that every day. And we see the practical effect is it keeps your mind more focused and less disturbed. I just was late partly because I was on a board meeting, New Vrindavan. Some of you may have been to New Vrindavan before. It was a New Vrindavan board meeting. And I experienced when we start those meetings with at least even 1 minute of prayer and meditation, I'm like, you get centered. It's like, okay, whatever problem we're going to deal with today, whatever opportunity or challenge, it's like, okay, I'm going to keep it in a proper context. And if we don't do that, it's like it's very easy to get kind of swept away by whatever's going on. So taking some time for meditation, particularly it's recommended in this age for chanting, as we chanted the Maha Mantra. There's many, many mantras, and many of you maybe come from families where they chant different kind of mantras, and that's okay. Maha Mantra is particularly advised because it's very powerful, especially in this age. That's one thing, to add some meditation to our lives. Second thing, to always make sure we associate with spiritually minded people. Why this club is like so fantastic. Because it is a fact, we're tremendously influenced by our friends. Tremendously by the energy that's around us. And most of the world today, for spiritual life, there's a lot of religious people in the world, but spiritual life is not a big priority for most people. In fact, you probably all got friends that ask you like, hey, what'd you do on Sunday? And you say, well, I went to the Krishna club. And they say, you what? You mean you didn't watch 8 hours of football games? Or you didn't go out partying on Friday night? Or this? They think like, you're a little crazy for that, right? I mean, adults too, you get same pressure. Same pressure. Because there's different values. People have different values. But Krishna at least is saying, at least in theory, take advantage of the spiritual perspective. And so 2 things. Chant, associate with spiritual persons. Of course, we know, avoid things that bring bad karma. There is laws of action and reaction in this world, the same way they govern material objects. Action and reaction, the same way they affect us. So minimizing violence. Some of the young people here have taken vows, no meat for the rest of my life. Sometimes I meet people from different traditions who you know, some Muslim friends, Buddhist friends, Jewish friends, some, you know, different like fast days. You know, we do a little fasting in Bhakti, but then I was thinking about it, I thought like, you know, they'll say like our Muslim friends, you know, sometimes they like do Ramadan, right? 30 days of fasting. I was saying, wow, we don't do anything like that. And I thought, well, what kind of vows do we take for fasting? Well, no meat for life. That's pretty intense, right? That's a heavy vow, right? Those are, you know, no intoxication. I grew up in a generation where young people were infatuated with intoxication. I think it's still a big thing today. But, you know, the fact is we know the studies. I just read some study. It was released just a week ago. Now they've determined, without a doubt, even one drink of alcohol, I think it was a day, maybe it was a week, leads to dementia. And, you know, maybe you guys aren't worried about dementia. Everybody I know, 45 and older, is worried about dementia. It's like the big thing, you know. And maybe some of you have relatives. It's like, you know, it's a serious problem. I just had my wife's uncle just died, and the family's very affluent, so okay, they'll figure out a way to take care of her. But severe dementia, like, doesn't recognize anybody. Like, the family came home for the funeral of the father, she didn't recognize anybody. She didn't know anybody. And it's a big percentage of people that are suffering from that. So that's just one example of things that seem to bring some short-term pleasure in this world. A lot of times they cause a lot of difficulties. You know, like we mentioned our diet and eating meat. I was in Colorado for 17 years. Lots and lots of feedlots and slaughterhouses there. And I mean, so many studies. They know it's horrible. It's horrible for the earth. It's horrible for providing food for people. 16 pounds of grain in general to make 1 pound, at least beef, and maybe less for different animals. It's like if you're concerned about the food shortages for people, if you're concerned about the environment, it's horrible pollution of the environment, horrendous misuse of water, etc. So there's practical benefits as well. So avoid things that lead to bad karma, and spend some time studying some of what Krishna advises. You know, you probably got like, well, you don't have books these days, but like if you converted your screens into books, they would be like this high, right? So there's so many things you have to study, you have to read. So Krishna says just a little bit, just take a little bit of time to study my teachings and what's presented by Krishna's devotees, and take advantage of that so we can keep balance. So that's the main message as you head out into the world as soon to be PhDs and experts in your field and influential people and people in so many varieties of fields that are represented here. Keep some balance in your life, because the world's going to tell you there's no need for balance. Just make money and have eternal hair, and you'll be happy. Like I did one thing one time, and I'll end with this, just another common sense story. I went one time to I don't know if they do them here, but where we live, they have these timeshare programs, right? And they have advertisements all the time, and you get stuff in the mail. If you're not getting them now, you'll get them as soon as they'll find you. And they'll send you other solicitations. Come like special timeshare program, and no pressure, and we just want you to like come. If you do, we'll give you 3 days free hotel, anywhere like that. So just one time I went to one of those. I told my wife, let's just go and check it out. But before we went, I told the lady on the phone, back when they used to do it with phone solicitation, I told her, I said, we'll come, but I'm going to tell you ahead of time, we're not buying anything. At least not that night. I'm a little interested in what you have to tell us, but we're not buying anything on the spot. She's like, no problem, no problem. You're welcome to come. Of course, she's getting money for the number of people she convinces to come, right? Then we showed up that night, and I told the person at the door, I said, you need to know we're not going to buy anything tonight. You still want us to be here? And they said, yeah, that's fine. Because they're getting a percentage for every person that walks in the door. Then I was surprised to find, I thought it was going to be like a group pitch, like me and all of you. They don't do that. It's like one-on-one. It's like you walking through, and they're showing you about how beautiful it is and wonderful and this and that and all the perks. And then I told that guy, I said, we're not going to buy anything tonight. And of course, now you're down to like, he's going to spend a half an hour with you. He's got a certain number of clients, and if you tell him right up front you're not going to buy it, he was not happy. But he kind of bit his lip and showed us around anyway. And at the end, they took us in a big room with like those chandeliers with all the flickering lights, like a disco. And you know, they know their audience, so they're, you know, old people, they're playing Beatle music, right? And like, it's come to the party, and you walk in, it's just like, this is where all the individuals come with their particular salesperson. And it was a really intense pitch. You know, and then if you say no, they say, well, we'll throw in this. And if you say no again, well, we'll throw in this, we'll give you another week of this, another week of this, another week of this. And finally, it reached a point, I said to the guy that was our particular person, I said, you know, I've said no 17 times now. Who's the manager? I want to talk to the manager. So they said, okay, well, it took me to the manager. The manager's like down the hall. You go through the big fancy place. You go down the hall, through the hall, there's like, you know, just cement brick, and you go to the back and some little grimy office. There's the guy sitting there. I told him, I said, how do you sleep at night? This is how you make your living? You got a room of people out there. They can't afford what you're selling. They don't want what you're selling. They don't need what you're selling. And you're psychologically creating a whole environment so they say yes, even though they know it's against their best judgment. You know, and he was like really apologetic. He said, well, we still want to give you your 3 nights. I said, well, I don't want your stupid 3 nights in a hotel. I want to know why you're manipulating people in such a bad way. And then what's interesting, kind of like a, what is it, an end note to the story. At least where I live, regularly on the radio, you hear advertisements for law firms. Did you buy a timeshare that you're stuck with it after 15 years or 5 years? Call us, we'll get you out. We specialize in how to sue these people because they ripped you off and blah, 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 blah. It's such a big business to get you out of those that they buy advertisements on the radio because there's so many customers out there, potential customers. So when you see all these kind of things, you know, they're selling you so many things to buy that you don't really need. They pressure people. And then there's other people that sue people to get you out of that. And Krishna says, hey, don't get sucked up in that. Maintain some balance in your life. Maintain some spiritual priorities. Go out and make a ton of money. Be a, a research scientist. Discover cures to all kinds of diseases, and fix things in so many places. Figure out what AI means. Nobody else in the world really knows. Figure out how to do it in a way that actually helps society. Do it, but don't forget your spiritual priorities. Keep that balance there. So, just a few thoughts. Thank you for listening so closely. Can we open a door or something and get some air in here? It's getting a little stuffy. So I don't know if we have a few minutes if there's any questions or comments or clarifications or challenges or anything at all. Or you're not a student.
Well, somebody asked me, one of the students asked me, so I was just going to play it back over here.
Yeah.
This is how you began, because look, there's enormous turmoil right now. And not that in the past, in history, there's never been turmoil.
Always was.
It's
Always
constant.
was.
It's the one constant, right? And so, but the group that we have over here, probably outside as well, our circles, the reality is that we do have to balance a lot of these challenges, right? So our job, our friends, our life, our life partner, what have you, immigration and so on, which is a little bit more recent. So if I'm synthesizing what you said correctly, you're saying like the way to manage this is, well, you said also have some spiritual involvement in your life. But prescriptively, outside of chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, would you like to call out a few check boxes?
Well, I said chanting, associating with spiritually minded people, avoiding those activities that lead to bad karma and cloud our minds and are bad for the planet, and then studying, spending some time to study, and then applying it. Because there's all smart people want to go down the list and do this and do this and do this, but read and see what other advice Krishna gives. And it really, Prabhupada oftentimes would say the science of spiritual life, and sometimes people object that how is science. But as I understand, he meant science in the sense that there's like a theorem, and then you practice it. There's a theory, you practice it, you see if it works in the laboratory of your life. You observe whether things are actually aligned with what we observe in the world around us. And if it works, you go deeper. So.
In the same lines also you mentioned, like, look, advice comes from multiple sources, and sometimes we feel that it's coming from either well-meaning but ignorant sources or people who are not as
I mentioned uncles, right?
alignment as us. And so how do we practically manage that, especially if it's coming from friends and even parents and what have you, who we know, and we are talking now not
I
necessarily.
became a Christian devotee in 1975. Good thing you're the professor here, we would have had to chastise you. I became a Christian devotee long ago, 1975. And my parents were not particularly religious or spiritual people. They couldn't do that one thing. I could have become a Catholic priest. We weren't Catholic, but I could have become a Catholic priest or anything else. They would have thought it was absolutely insane. And my father sent me, he was pretty disturbed. And I hadn't finished college, so they invested like 2.5 years of university, mostly their money, a little bit of mine. So that was not making them happy either. My father sent me a copy of what used to be Big Things, Time magazine, still published, but it's not so big anymore. And he wrote on the cover of Time magazine, "Come back to the real world." That's how much appreciation he had for what I was doing. I lived in an ashram for a while, and then later got married and lived a more kind of like standard type of life. But please come in, welcome. And flash forward from that point, like 4 years later, and my parents, I was living in Denver, my parents had come to see me, and they said, among our 3 kids, you're the happiest. And my sister had gone to nursing school and she was married and I think she had a child by then. My brother was in real estate investment, made a ton of money, millions and millions and millions of dollars. And my parents told me, you're like a Hare Krishna person, you're happier. Actually, you could see that. So sometimes advice also changes and sometimes people's perception also changes. I think a lot of people, I had this experience, I think a lot of you may have experienced this, or many other people I talked to experience this. When you choose to be a member of the Krishna club, and you got a certain number of friends that are in the Saturday night, have a drink and get blown out club, those people don't really want to hang out with you anymore because you're a member of the Krishna club. I had a lot of friends who just, when I became more serious in spiritual life, just like they didn't want anything to do with me anymore. And people who I didn't have a very close relationship with, all of a sudden were really inquisitive and commended me for my commitment to spiritual life. I had one experience, I'll just share a story if I can. I remember, because I lived as a brahmachari, so I was like full-blown Hare Krishna devotee, orange robes on the street, living in an ashram, getting up every day in the temple and all of that for about 10 years. So during one of those times I was with a chanting party downtown, which we often do, you've all seen, or maybe you do sometimes here. Chanting downtown Denver, and a whole group of businessmen walked by, and I caught the eye of one guy in a very expensive fancy suit, and he saw me, and I recognized him, and he recognized me, and he stopped and talked for a while. His name was Sam Storman, and I was feeling a little uncomfortable, like he was a year behind me in high school actually, and I was a little uncomfortable. Here's this guy in this fancy suit. He's working with some big law firm in downtown DC, and I'm standing like a Hare Krishna guy, gave up the world, and what am I, nuts? And at one point, we were talking, at one point he said, he listened to the whole thing, don't jump to any judgments, but he said, look at you. He said, look what you're doing, and look at me. I'm just a lawyer. So there was a person that had a little bit of a glimpse of the value of spiritual life, but at least at that stage wasn't making a commitment that he really felt he probably could be doing, or at least he valued that somebody else was doing that. So in your question of contradictory advice, we will get contradictory advice. We have to weigh it ourselves. Sometimes our best friend, our most beloved parent who cares more about us than anybody, a friend that cares so much, they may give us not such good advice. So we have to make up our own minds, which is really far out, because in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna goes through 18 chapters of advising Arjuna what to do. He's God. He reveals the universal form. Like he takes away all doubt. He knows Arjuna's just this big, right? And at the end of the book, he says, okay, now what do you want to do? Which is really amazing. It's not like you have to do this, I'm God, surrender. We hear this term surrender, it kind of sounds like you don't have much choice. But at the end of the whole Bhagavad Gita, he says, okay, Arjuna, now make up your mind, what do you want to do? So that's the free will that each of us has. So in the same way, you know, we hear advice in different places and we make up our minds. And sometimes we make the wrong choice. And, you know, we believe in reincarnation, right? You make the wrong choice, you get another chance. Krishna's very kind, you know, like it's kind of heavy, but you know, you want to eat, like when you're kids, right, you kind of joke around, you got a friend say, he eats like a pig. Well, careful. You know, eat like a pig, you get a body like a pig, according to the tradition, right? So whatever we want, there's described 8,400,000 different species of life. I mean, I don't know who counted them, but that's a lot of species. Each one has different opportunity for different types of material gratification. So Krishna says, you want that, great, go for it, no problem. I'm not going to force you. But see, we're all meant to kind of be sitting back going, well, you know, they told me buy a timeshare to make me happy, but I'm not sure. Let me check this out. And if that makes everybody happy, why are there a bunch of people out there trying to sue the timeshare companies because they're so frustrated because they stole they took their money, right? So we're meant to kind of ask those questions. Yeah. I mean, my other university story, if I can. I was studying political theory, how should society be organized that people can be happy and won't be so much exploitation in the world. Studying Marx and Locke and Aristotle and Socrates and Hobbes and all these different people. And at a certain point in time, I kind of realized these people are geniuses. What use is me writing some stupid 20-page paper, you know, 500 years later, analyzing, these are the greatest thinkers of all time. But the thing I noticed, they all have assumptions. The first 20 or 30 pages of their 2,000 pages of work, they state their assumption. Human beings are by nature at war with each other. That's like modern capitalism, Locke, and all of those ideas, liberalism. Marx, no, that we are by nature in class warfare. Therefore, we need a communist system to balance that out. So like, wow, genius. So I went to my very favorite professor, Professor Zimmerman. I asked him after class one day, I said, Professor Zimmerman, I'm kind of understanding these people are geniuses. What good is it me, a stupid little, I was undergraduate, you know, to write a critique of Marx? I mean, you got to be kidding. Shouldn't we be discussing not so much critiquing where they go, but shouldn't we be discussing the truth of their assumptions? Because they all have different assumptions. Isn't that what we should be studying? The truth of their assumptions? And he told me something I'll never forget. He said, we are not here to study truth. I thought, why am I giving you $10,000 a year? Which back those days was a lot of money. These days, $10,000 won't buy you 2 weeks in university, right? I don't know. More expensive. But I mean, I was like, well, what's the point of this? And of course, you can make so many arguments, well, it's relative and blah, blah, blah. But from a deeper sense, if you're trying to actually understand what am I supposed to do, like I said in the beginning, we have different choices to make and where do I go to school and what should I study, what's career. We're making very, 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 very serious decisions. And if we're not able to weed through all the advice and the contradictory information we get, keeping in mind what's my ultimate benefit, then I might make some wrong choices. So Krishna's giving advice. We should take his advice seriously. Any other questions or comments anybody might have? Yes.
So me as a robotics engineer and a lot of other STEM majors. So
Okay.
Our goal is to like build things, produce things, right?
Yes.
But then not all of those things are gonna be like constructed to society. Materials gonna be like dug up to build those things.
Yeah.
And then also now we're gonna have salespeople who are gonna try to push things.
Yeah.
Things that we've built, like for people to buy them. And then if I do like real estate development or somebody's doing that, they're gonna have to bulldoze a bunch of land and all that stuff, build houses.
Yeah.
But that's the only way to make like significant money in this day and age. So then
That's why everybody's depressed. That's why the smart people in society are depressed, because of what you said. So what's the question then?
So then like how are we supposed to balance that? Because like for me generally my mentality is like how do I acquire as much wealth as possible?
Yeah. See, that's your mentality, that's other people's mentality.
Generally like the path that, especially when I make career decisions,
Mhm.
stuff like that, that's generally my mentality.
Those are great. Two great questions there. One, we should want to acquire all the wealth as possible, and we should be very careful what we consider wealth. I had experienced a few years ago, we were putting a marble floor in our temple in Washington, D.C., and I was driving back and forth to Long Island where the marble wholesaler was. We picked out something after a few trips, and we're in the office, and they had like a drawing, like an architectural drawing of what looked like the palace at Versailles or something like that. So I'm just conversing with the guy, and I said, wow, that's an amazing building. Is that in Europe? He said, oh, that's in New Jersey. I said, what is that? I never seen it. He said, that's the owner's house. I said, really, the owner of this business? I mean, it was big. I mean, it was like 10 times the size of this house. Maybe it was big. So I was asking him all about it, and he said, yeah, it's the owner's house. And he described it to me as he said, in the bathroom, they have 8 by 8 foot pieces of marble. You know, marble usually you pay as it gets smaller and smaller, bigger and bigger, it's more expensive. And they had to raise the whole ground 6 feet because they didn't like the elevation. A ton of money. So naturally, I asked one point, I said, such a big house, how many kids do they have? He said, well, they don't have any kids. I said, really? So it's just this man and his wife? No, only the man. I said, really? It was always him? He said, no, they were married before. It's a true story. I asked him, I said, well, what happened? And he pointed, he said, that house. They fought over the house, and they got divorced. So much wealth, okay? So much wealth, but are they really? Now he's got no wife, no kids. He got this big. I don't know what happened to him. I didn't bother to ask more details. But what we're told is, just like the timeshares. See, you listen to the radio, whatever. This is wealth. Buy a timeshare. It's wealth, right? This is wealth. You go to the casino and you bet a bunch of money, make a lot of money, right? Have you read some of the stories about what happens when people win the lottery? A huge percentage, and maybe a majority of the people that win the lottery, their lives are ruined. Isn't it? You're smiling. You've seen some of that.
Yeah, there are few examples that I know. People just went crazy. They don't know what to do with it.
They don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
They sell their house that they've been happily living in for 10 years or 20 years, and they buy something much bigger, and they buy a fancy race car, and all of a sudden their kids have got a ton of money to spend, and you know, all their old friends from college, you won the lottery. I mean, you know, actually you were always my best friend. I never had a chance to really tell you how much I really love and care about you. And you know, I've been trying to connect you for the last 5 years just because I really miss your friendship. And I saw your name in the paper. I just want to call you up and congratulate you and come over and maybe talk about some business ventures I'd like you to invest in. Right? It happens. And next thing you know, they lose the wife, they lose the kids, they lose everything. So they suppose they're wealthy. So we have to be careful how we define wealth. That's one thing. And I mean, they've done some studies, again, you can look it up, where there's a tendency to think the more wealth I get, the happier I will become, isn't it? Otherwise, why do we want it, isn't it? I want wealth because it's going to make, I mean, it's prestigious and all that, but more importantly, it's going to make me happy. But they've done a lot of studies. If you don't have a roof over your head, if you don't have money to feed your family, if you don't have like a car, in America at least, a car that works, there's proportionate increase in the happiness and the sense of satisfaction and security as I achieve those things. Once you've reached that base level, there's no proportionate increase. You go from a 3-4 bedroom house to an 8-bedroom house, your happiness doesn't double. You go from $100,000 a year to $500,000 a year, from 500 to like 5 million. It doesn't increase proportionally, which it should, if that in itself is definitely a cause of happiness. And you know, we know, so many studies of people that are very successful and a lot of unhappiness. So there's not a direct, not that we're saying it's a problem, but your other question about, hey, you become a real estate agent, you gotta, maybe sometimes you gotta, mess up things with the environment, you work in robotics and there's gonna be byproducts that be harmful. Arjuna had the same problem. He looked out on the battlefield, he said, Krishna, to put it in modern parlance, this is a lose-lose scenario here, right? There's I get relatives on both sides. And if I win the battle, I gotta kill all those people, which means I lose. And if I lose the battle, everybody on my side dies, which means I lose. I'm out of here. That's, again, modern version of the Bhagavad Gita. But basically, as we said, I quit, I'm out of here, I'm gonna renounce the world. And Krishna said, he said, you can't do that. He said, that would be foolish to do that. And then he went through the whole explanation. You're a spiritual being. You're in a temporary place. You have to try to spiritualize your activities and at the same time minimize the damage you do. Live justly. In his case, he was a warrior king, and the other side were really bad people, and they'd done a lot of really bad things, and they tried for years and years and years and years to rectify it, and they couldn't. So it was like it was reached that point, there's no other alternative. But we can live in the world with the intention of doing the best we can and minimizing the damage. That's one side. Or we can live in the world where there is no explanation for everything, for anything or everything. It's everyone for himself. And I make alliances with people that help me politically or financially or whatever otherwise. And I chew them up and spit them out as soon as they prove to be disloyal to me. There are examples of that in the world today. Or I just try to like step on people's head to get to the top. But we see those people, they're not happy. And they're not understanding the laws of karma by any means. And I mean, it's like, the world is like a big paintboard. It's like painted, danger, danger, watch out, wake up, what are you doing? There's a funny story about some people driving in a car down the street, and they went by a church. In the front of the church, there were some people standing with, turn back now, the end is near. This is ridiculous, ha ha ha, they're all laughing, and it's people besides, and they drive around the corner, you hear this big crash. And the one guy holding the sign, he turns it down and he says, that's the third car this morning. Do you think we should change the signs to say the bridge is out? So, I mean, what was it? It was in the last year, right? Maybe some of you know the name. Who was that very wealthy person who, for kicks, took, I think, 14-year-old son down in the submarine to a depth that most people have never been to, well, most submarines have never been to before, to because hey, what's like jumping off a mountain? That's nothing. Any millionaire can do that, right? Buy an island in Turkey and go to the beach. That's like small time enjoyment. We're multi-billionaires. We're going to do something special. We're going to go down in a submarine and look. I think they went to see the Titanic, right? Right. Interest in the Titanic, which itself was a disaster. Now there are others. Maybe I don't know. We don't necessarily believe in curses, but something's going on there. He goes down there to enjoy it in a special way. Poof, he's gone in an instant. So 1 second he's a billionaire, wealthy, and then the next minute it's all gone. He's like a footnote in history. What a fool. Right? And he took his own son. I mean, it's bad enough he died, but he took his son. And there's so many examples of that. So it's flickering. It describes in the Bhagavatam that whatever we achieve in this world is like a drop of water in a lotus leaf. It's there and then it's gone. You know? I mean, there's people here no teenagers here, right? Everybody's 20. There's people in their 20s, 30s.
I'm 17.
17. Congratulations. So, whatever age we're at, I mean, people die at 17. I mean, I met someone the other night, very, very, very sad. I mean, this is described as Marcha Loka. This is the planet of death. It's not a very secure place. I met, very sad, met someone just a few days ago. Their daughter died in a accidentally drowned. Somehow snuck through the neighbor's fence, was like left open, that they didn't, for 5 minutes she's gone. And then somehow she snuck through the fence and she drowned. Less than 3 years old. People before 10, they die. People in their teens, they die. I had a friend when I was younger, committed suicide at 13, hung himself outside their family porch. It happens. Remember my parents telling me stories about, they had friends, they lived in a small town in Michigan and they're out having fun, joyriding in their car. They came over a hill. Back in the days, they didn't have railroad track warnings everywhere. And the front of the train had gone by, the only light, and they smashed into 4 or 5 of their friends. Not that that's all we talk about, but it's like wake up call. And so Krishna's saying, this world's not such a nice place. There's such a better place to be. There's such a better place. There's a way to be. Whether you make $1 billion, great. Make $1 billion and use it to try to uplift the world as best you can. and minimize those side effects. That's the bottom line. Try to minimize the side effects. I mean, you just walk on, like our Jain friends, right? They wear masks and like to minimize the amount of living entities that are killed. Try to minimize as best we can, but life is such in this place, you can't completely do no harm, but try to minimize that harm. And be an example of that. Be an example. You're all smart young people, you're going to go a long ways. Be an example of people to make decisions based on what's best for the world. And somebody offers you sometime like, okay, you're a real estate dealer. Somebody offers you like, we'll give you an extra $500,000. You just want me to cheat in this particular way. And you go, sorry, I don't do that. Well, how about $1 million? Sorry, I don't do that. You know, we need people with integrity. The world needs people with integrity to make choices based on that some higher principle than short-term gain.
So your point is basically like, don't sacrifice what really matters in the pursuit of wealth, and like be as ethical and as morose possible in the decisions you're making, but there's no way you're gonna do no harm in this world.
He should give the class next week. Yes, well put. Well put. And the reason we need spiritual association, people that are spiritually minded, ethically minded association, because a lot of people tell you you're a fool for thinking like that. You know, don't you realize what this world is like? You're never going to get ahead. Everybody cheats. Everybody lies. Everybody steals. And we need a few people to say, well, I don't. I try not to. I minimize it. I'm not going to do it. That may be what everybody does. I'm not going to do it. And then other people around you start saying, wow, there's a person with some integrity. I think I want to follow their example. Because the other way makes life hellish. You know, it makes life hellish. When everybody, you know, any interaction you get into, you know, you don't know if they're going to take advantage of you, if they're just trying to, you know, sell you a bunch of goods that aren't what it says is. And do some study someday about like Christmas, how much money people spend at Christmas, and how much of it they throw away within 6 months. It's phenomenal. In this country at least, it's like 60%. They buy stuff, they're told, I gotta buy this, I gotta go stand at Best Buy overnight and make sure I'm the first one there. Like 6 months later, I'm throwing it away. So yeah, you gave a nice summary, thank you. And may Krishna empower you to live like that your whole life. Yeah.
So we'll have the Damodarashtakam prayers now.
Okay.
And then followed by, you know, Prasadam, and then if there are people who would like to approach you for questions, they can do so at that time as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
So maybe Abhinav Govinda Prabhu over here is going to project the Damodarashtakam prayers. And so what we would do is when the prayers are going on, we can come here, take a ghee lamp, offer